is my grandfather's book. This was his book. He's got notes in here when he was a pre-med student, an MD, 1899 when this book was copyrighted. And it's explanation of tables and logarithms and things, which I don't even know what that means.
Why are you touching with your bare hands and not like a silk glove?
All right, Calvary Recap number 8. That's 5 plus 3. 8. Or I do 1, 2, 3. 5 plus 3. Well, we had just finished up our Faith in a Modern World series, and let me tell you, it was a great time. Had a lot of great questions at the end, kind of a lightning round. It was really exciting. One of the things that I talked about, broke it up in 2 sections. First section was about this idea of the Bible. How was the Bible formed? Can we trust it in some degree? What was the Bible? The canon of the Bible, which just means the rule or standard. How that developed. But then the second lecture was about this idea of more kind of how does faith work in a modern world. I use the word modern very loosely. I know we're in a postmodern world, and so I'm deconstructing the word modern to mean postmodern, but modern in context of today. So that's my exciting explanation of how I got that. But when I talked about the second part one is I talked about the idea that everybody exhibits faith. And traditionally in Christianity, the proof or the burden of proof has always lied on the believer to prove God. And I love this quote by Keller. He wrote it in a book called Making Sense of God. Very good book. He goes, traditionally it's been expected that believers should provide non-believers with proof of the existence of God. After all, we would not believe in beings like the Yeti or the Loch Ness Monster unless they were proof of their existence. Determining the existence of God is not like determining the existence of any being inside the material world. To believe in God is to believe the universe has a certain character. To disbelieve in God is to believe the universe has a very different character. So believers in God have argued that God's existence cannot be proven empirically as if it were a physical object. And, I think when I talk to people and interact with them, they're like, well, prove to me God exists. And it's, like you said, not proving that Bigfoot's real or a Yeti or something like that. It's talking about God who created all things and created the universe. And we talked about faith, and we said everybody has not only faith claims, but one of the arguments that I think is helpful in our day, and something that a lot of us think about, is morality, right and wrong. And how do we come up with what is right and wrong? And where does it come from? And so the argument kind of goes, in some senses, that morals come either from genetics, they're passed down, or they are culturally created. So we have one or the other. And so when you talk about morals, and you talk about right or wrong, and some people say, hey, it just doesn't matter. Society, we've determined for ourselves for what's right and wrong, and this is the way we should live. And the problem really comes into, I believe, is that when we go to other places and tell them how they ought to live, and when we take our socially created ideas and press them onto other people. And that's where I think the idea of morals, especially that they've been socially constructed purely, that's where it starts to break down. Because then we're telling people how they ought to live and what they ought to do in life. And that's why I think when you talk about morals, right and wrong, I think the level of morality, and a guy that talks about it, David Bentley Hart, talks about morals. He says this: it is certainly not the case that one needs to believe in God in any explicit way in order to be good, but it's certainly the case that to seek the good is already to believe in God. And what he does is he talks about morals as just not as abstract thought, but to be good and to do the right thing and those type of things has a level of good, and later Keller would argue in his book it has a level of personhood in it. And so I just think we have to think through the argument of right and wrong. Is it just something we create, or is there something outside of us that tells us how we ought to live? And so when it comes to talking about faith in a modern world and about God and how all that works together, I really think that doubting or thinking through our faith claims is really important. And so what I think for me, what I've landed at is that faith claims, and when you make faith claims, you have to ask, well, what are they for? So just in morality, what happens when I don't do the things that I should do, even things that I construct. Now, I'm not saying what you say about what I should do, but things that I say about myself. Like if I think being a good person is telling the truth and I don't do that, how do I deal with that reality? What do I do with that fact? And so I think Christianity, for me, not only answers that question, but it gives me hope. Not that I can continue to miss the mark and do those things, but gives me hope about what happens when I do those things and I fail to live up to the things that I think I should do and I don't do. And so the word sin really is the word in the Greek, hamartia, and it means to miss the mark. It means to fail in that sense. And so the nice thing and the beautiful thing about Christianity, it says, it recognizes that we constantly miss the mark, and God's standards for living, we don't do. And what God does do is provide a way that we can now be in standing with God. We can have righteousness with Him because He's gifted us that through what Jesus did for us, which is, I love this last quote I read, is this. It says, the Christian teaching is that Jesus was cut off from God as we deserved and paid the debt we owed, so that when we believe in Him, we can receive God's love and forgiveness. On the cross, Jesus Christ got life without God so we could have life with God. He was putting Himself into our lives, our misery, our mortality, so we could be brought into His life, His joy, His immortality. And so when you think through the premises of morality, what it should speak to is, man, we can't do it. Even the standards we make, we can't do it. Not that we can't construct an idea, but that those ideas even fail us. And what do we do about it? And so Christianity is a story of rescue. It's Christ Himself living life without God. He was forsaken so that we could be brought in, and it's a beautiful story. So I encourage you, if you got a time to listen to the message, it'll be in the link below. You can listen to the message that I gave. It's a lot fuller, a lot more details. But other than that, what a great weekend we had, and looking forward to continuing on the study of 1 John, and we hope you can join us. So thanks a bunch. Recap number 8 is here, and it is gone. We also will be doing some giveaways coming up here pretty soon, so you can, we'll talk about what that looks like here in the future, and we'll have some more guests on the show. Well, you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you later. See ya.